He's now won 4 straight games. Benjamin, that's very, very bad news for Jan Nepomniachtchi.
That's bad news for Jan indeed. He's having his chances in these games, but he fails to capitalize on them, and Magnus is just a little bit more precise in those final moments, and that is why right now he's having a 3-point lead in the match.
And we see that Jan Nepomniachtchi, he essays the Italian game, no more King's Gambit from him, but he needs to score victory from what is typically seen as quite a solid position rather than a tactical one.
Exactly, yeah. Now I think the King's Gambit clearly backfired. Jan is playing an opening right now that is objectively sound. He goes knight a3. This is quite reminiscent of their last game in the 2021 World Chess Championship. Magnus going rook to e8. I guess he wants to go bishop e6, trade of the bishops. Again, not the most exciting game so far, but this is often how the Italian goes. Like, both players are trying to play for small advantages.
And you see, these players know it very well because the bishop trade was offered. White brings the bishop to b5. Black quickly retreats the bishop to d7 despite having just moved the piece. So look at this. No pawns have been traded. It's an even position in terms of material. But where do they go for from here? White might strike with d4, but black is aiming at the e4 pawn.
Exactly, and Magnus now rerouted his knight to g6. This gives him the option to go c6, kick the bishop away, and then perhaps go d5 at some point in the future and build in the center. g3, an interesting move by Jan. It deprives the knight on g6 of the f4 square, but he is weakening some light squares around his king.
The light squares could be black's for the taking, especially if you could hop your knight forward, but unfortunately the pawn on g3 takes away the knight on g6's 4 jumps. And Benjamin, my coach, always used to tell me, knights on b3, g3, b6, and g6, they're often the worst squares for a knight because not only do they not get able to jump forward based on a pawn, but they end up staying there a bit too long.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll see how this plays out. In the meantime, Jan goes pawn to b4, expanding on the queen side. The good thing, though, about this knight on g6 is that it will always protect this pawn on d5, and that is why... Wait, but bishop takes d5? Robert, isn't that just a blunder?
Uh-oh, the queen on c7 is loose. So what is Magnus thinking here? Oh, bishop b3, trusted him.
Jan misses it.
Oh, let's go back. Let's bring up an analysis board just to show everybody what that looked like when 2 of the best players on the planet, they just didn't really think. They didn't spend enough time. Bishop takes d5. You couldn't take back as you're showing because the queen was loose on c7. So black is lucky that you don't actually lose, a bunch of material, but that was a central pawn, and that would have been good news for Jan Nepomniachtchi.
Exactly, and again, he has to take advantage of these opportunities when they present them. Now Magnus has a very comfortable position. He goes queen e6, attacking the pawn, rook ab1, and bishop to e6. And Robert, I already slightly prefer black's position. He's got a very nice center here. The pawn on b4 is a little bit loose. The pawn on a4 was a little bit loose. That's why Jan moves it up to a5. And Magnus has very easy piece play.
And the one thing going for Jan is the b4 pawn cannot be captured just yet because bishop takes d5. The queen would be in line with the rook. Rooks win showdowns with queens, but that was a big miss. I think that's one of those moments where we can't beat around the bush. We can't sugarcoat it. Jan needs to find those moves when Magnus blunders, and maybe because it wasn't a huge change in evaluation, chess.com doesn't give it a blunder. That's what we call blunders, right? Top grandmasters say, I just blundered that idea. He just didn't see it coming, and Jan, unfortunately, he didn't see it either.
Yeah, quite shocking because it seemed to be quite elementary. But okay, the good thing for Jan is that the position is still even. That being said, it's difficult for both sides to come up with a plan here. So let's see what he's going to do. Maybe like king g2, move his king up a little bit. Like you said earlier, the pawn on b4 for the moment is not hanging because if you take, there's always going to be bishop takes d5. So we see knight f5 by Jan. The idea is that in case black takes, you recapture with the pawn, attack the knight on g6, and once the knight moves, then this pawn on e5 is hanging. So let's see what Magnus is going to do. Maybe just queen d7, threaten to take the knight, and I don't see anything better than just moving the knight back to e3.
That's probably what he's going to go for because there isn't anything better there. And that would be a funny repetition of queen d7, knight e3, queen d6, knight f5. Not one you see every day. But why should Magnus make a draw here? His center is perfect. Look how solid it is. From b7 to d5, his e5 pawn is defended. So if I'm Magnus, I'm looking for more. I'm not just trying to draw this game from the black side. And he can really put the pressure on Jan. 3 points is a lot, but in bullet, anything can happen. If he extends this to 4 and Jan can tilt, that would mean it's Magnus's match, and Jan, I don't know how he would be able to get back in it.
Yeah, and it's looking tough already for Jan. He is going up on time here in this one, though. He's already up a minute. Magnus just has to move the queen. The queen can really go anywhere. It can go to d7, c7, or even f8. I wonder if after queen d7, Jan perhaps is considering a move like knight to h4 to keep the game going. Perhaps that could be worth consideration.
Yeah, it also loosens up the e5 pawn because the knight on g6 is defending that pawn. It's its only defender if the queen is to slide away. So I like the look of a knight h4. And Magnus, he's really spending a ton of time here. Does he have any other square? We talked about queen d7. Maybe he's looking in a different direction.
Yeah, Magnus spending a lot of time here. He's dropping 90 seconds below on the clock. I don't know.
Whoa.
Okay, he goes for it. He goes for bishop takes a 5-4, but isn't this just losing a pawn?
Does he want, after rook takes e5, maybe knight g4, and then after the rook moves back, the knight takes on f5? It looks like that's what he's going for.
Right, he goes knight d7, same idea. Perhaps Jan could even consider a move like d5, sacking the rook, but if you take, you get these two pawns over here, and if the queen moves, maybe a move like f6. I mean,
I love it.
I don't know what to make of this by Magnus.
Remember when Jan didn't sack on g5 in a previous game? Knight takes g5. He had an option to get two pawns and open the king. Here he goes.
He goes for it.
He's leaning back. He plays d4. It earns the 2 exclamation points. And this is what he needs to get him back in the match. Moves like that, you sacrifice material in the center of the board. And Benjamin, as you said, if knight e5, d e5, and you allow a pawn to get up to f6, objectively, we see the eval bar saying black is okay. But in blitz chess, black loses that position most of the time.
Yeah, it looks super tough for black. Okay, here we see Magnus accepting the sacrifice. His queen is under attack. I guess it's going to go to d7, hitting the pawn. You can also just defend the pawn with a move like knight d4, followed by rook e1, maybe f6, e6 at the right moment. Or you can set up this battery, queen d3, bishop c2, and then e6 or f6. And Magnus, in the meantime, doesn't have any active plan. So I love this exchange sacrifice by Jan.
It's great. Queen takes b4 is available. He does go for it just now, but I think f6 still looks very strong. And the point is that knight g6 is unavailable in that particular line because of bishop takes d5 with a threat not just against the queen, but if queen takes g6 check, the f-pawn would be pinned. So f6 here looks like a huge opportunity for Jan, but maybe Magnus is willing to sacrifice his queen and he'll get 2 rooks for it.
And there we go, f6 is on the board. Great move by Jan. Like you said, in case of takes and knight g6, there's bishop takes d5. The queen is under attack, and you also threaten to hit this knight over here. So perhaps Magnus has to give up his queen on b1. And he will have 2 rooks though, but his king on g8 is going to be super weak.
And the fact that Magnus hasn't moved yet, could he have somehow missed this? Like, queen takes b1 is the only move. You lose the game because queen takes g6 check leads to immediate mate. He has to play queen takes b1, follow that up by taking on d5, I think with the rook. Maybe he's not even that much worse. The eval bar is pretty high, Benjamin, but I think they're great drawing chances for black.
I mean, to be fair, this does look really nice for white. If you get the queen to h6, it's just going to be checkmate, so you can even, and there we see queen to c1 right away. I guess Magnus has to play king h7 or rook d6 or rook a6, so that in case you take on h6, black still has the move rook takes f6. We see king h7, knight d4. This should be a win for Jan. I mean, knight f5 and queen takes h6 is coming.
And Jan knows it. The way he just looked, he's like, yep, that knight is coming in to help do some of the heavy lifting, and it's unstoppable. Don't play knight f5 now, because knight f3 check will win the queen. So he brings king up to g2, and knight f5 is next.
But now Magnus has the time to go rook d6, because now he's just in time with rook takes f6, queen f4, nice move by Jan, rook to e8, but black's king is so weak over here, and I love this move h4, so that in case of a potential knight g6, you can always push the pawn all the way up to h5.
Really nicely done from Jan right now. And now queen f5 check. You can pick up the d5 pawn if you want that as well. The knight is loose on c4. The b7 and f7 pawns are also hanging. If Jan doesn't win this game, I just don't know how you beat Magnus Carlsen.
No, he has to win this one. He's up 2 minutes on the clock. Queen d7. Nice move by Jan. And now queen e7. The point is that after king g8, there is knight to f5. And there's just no move for Magnus. Jan is going to win this game.
This is beautiful technique from Jan because he could have taken the d5 pawn, but that would have given black better chances. Instead, he just brings all of his pieces, the h-pawn, the knight, and that's game over.